But that reflex is supposed to go away by 4 months of age, because the child just feeds and doesn't need to just continue sucking. And we comfort the child many times with a pacifier, because when they suck they feel more comforted, and it sort of imitates that feeling of being fed. But we have prolonged the sucking reflex by giving them the pacifier and keeping the pacifier in the child's mouth, or continuing the bottle past the age where the child would be breastfed, which is 9 to 12 months, maybe 15. And so what happens is that you are nurturing, you are providing extra blood flow to a part of the brain that's supposed to be diminishing in size, so the next part of the brain that's supposed to be enhanced continues growing. And so we have an immature baby at 15, 18, 21 months that doesn't quite speak the way and doesn't eat solids the way that they should, because we've allowed the child to continue on with the passy. And then we're asking the child, can you throw the passy away? But it's like throwing a friend away. We can't. You wouldn't want to tell the child, throw your friend away. You're just going to have to throw the friend away for yourself. So it's all of these things, and because we're trying to be so loving, but in a different way to our children, we're sort of prolonging that. And what happens when you continue to prolong is you miss the next developmental pathway, and so you're going to have a different outcome every time. And every time we do things like that, we just have a different outcome than what we would have had. And so each marker that seems inconsequential is building the next block and the next group of milestones. And so you hit them right and you'll do well, but you miss them, and every time there's a little veer to the left, a little veer to the left, and you will wind up somewhere that your child was not meant to go. And so the next slide is looking at if you've ever seen this is the Denver Developmental Scale, and it shows these are all different developmental milestones that children hit at different times. Now, if these are way too much for a mom to be looking at all the time, you'll drive yourself nuts. But on the other hand, it was good to have the scale before, because you knew if your child was on track or not, and gave you a sort of an idea of, okay, I should be doing these things, I should be enhancing these things. And moms sort of had this scale before, and so did pediatricians. Interestingly enough, this was in the little handbook that all pediatricians used to have, called the Harriet Lane. I looked in the new one, this is gone. So that it's so out there that children are supposed to do certain things to certain ages, that the idea of a Denver scale has sort of disappeared, and I don't know if that's by coincidence or what happened, but it's frightful to me. But this is how a child develops, and there were 3 areas of this. It was social, speech, and motor milestones. And so in infancy, it is the parent's task to train the baby. I'm sorry, I'm in your way. The training is going to begin the task of forming the child's pathways. And it is our job as a mom to make these neurological connections. And to explain one thing that I said the other day, it's very important to understand that sometimes dads are moms, sometimes aunts or uncles have to be the mom, sometimes a grandma has to be the mom, or a mother, so that you can fit whoever it is that is left with motherhood in there. But it's our job to make these connections happen at the appropriate times. So I already spoke about the passy. Sleeping is very important. So I'm going to give a little bit of as we go through, I'm going to give you some examples, and hopefully I won't go over time, because I get very excited about sleeping. Fabulous book if you want to copy something down. It's called, I think it was Ezo, and the pediatrician's name is escaping me right now. But it's an excellent book that talks about how to have your child sleep through the night by the time the child is 8 weeks of age. And I read the book and I said, wow, this is fantastic, I love this. And I said, I'm very type A, and I was starting to practice at that same time that I read the book, and I said, I'm going to do this. Hannah's going to be sleeping through the night by the time she's six weeks of age. I got this down. And so it was a book, 200 pages or so it wasn't much, and the chapters were very easy to read. But I can give you this book in a nutshell. I give it to all the moms that come in, and it takes me maybe about 2 minutes. So I said, after your baby is born, consider your time in little nuggets of 3 hours. And so let's say that you wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. Whether your child is awake or not, your baby will conform to you, and will conform to you for many years. So you first thing you're going to do is you're going to pray, go take care of yourself, and then immediately go wake up your child. And you're going to wake her or him up, and you're going to speak to her a little bit, and then you're going to put her on the breast, 10 to 15 minutes one side, 10 to 15 minutes the other side, and then burp her in between, burp her a little bit afterwards, and then talk. And then talk and tell her how much you love her. Maybe go through the house, show her different things, make sure that you and she or he are spending that you are giving of yourself to your child. And that'll take about another 15-20 minutes. Soon after that, the baby will start to fall asleep, and leave her or him a little bit alone to sort of learn how to self-comfort. You're going to put her or him down, and then you're going to get your stuff done. You're going to run over, and you're going to get your stuff done. In other words, you have little nuggets of 3 hours within you. That you have probably about an hour and a half to make sure that you get your stuff done. So 1 hour and a half is going to be dedicated to your baby. The other hour and a half, you're going to figure out, what do I do in this nugget? What do I do in this nugget? What do I do in this nugget? And your whole day goes in these little nuggets of 3 hours. It stretches out afterwards, but at the beginning, unless you really make a good effort to schedule yourself, you're not going to get organized. And then how about the other kids? How are you going to take care of the other kids? How are you going to cook? How are you going to do your laundry? How are you going to make sure that you take a shower and you don't smell, because you don't even have time for that? You have to schedule yourself. You have to organize yourself, and these 3 hour nuggets helps you to be able to get everything done. But guess what? Because you've kept your child awake so much, and that let him or her sleep for more than an hour and 15 minutes, and you are going to wake a sleeping child, because he needs to be awoken for the next feeding. And yes, this ad-lib thing, I don't feel it works well at all, because the child once again has to conform to you. There are exceptions, obviously, but for the most part the child conforms to you. And so you do wake your child up, and then you go to the next your next little set in your schedule. So when you get to the end of the day, you figure out what is the appropriate bedtime. 9 o'clock, 8:30, time of exhaustion, whatever that is. And then you make a routine for the bedtime. And at that point, maybe you have, let's say the baby is out of the 2-week frame, and the umbilical cord has fallen off already. So then you prepare a nice warm bath, and you find something that is scented very well. It can be a lavender scent, it can be chamomile, it can be something that's just very soothing and very good. And the child will smell this and know, bath time's coming. And so you give the child a nice bath, and sing a lullaby, something that's very soothing. Baby understands. Turn the lights down and tell the other children, shh. And you talk in very soothing tones. Oh, I love you so much. I've spent all this day with you. I've enjoyed you so much. Whatever it is that's on your heart that you want to tell your child. And then put the child to bed. At the beginning, the child will still wake up every 3 hours. I say at the beginning, don't let the child sleep for about more than 3.5 hours. You're going to be less stringent about that, picking the child up. But every 3 to 3.5 hours, you're going to pick up your child, and same routine for the breast. And you'll see the child will self-push at nighttime. Why? Because that baby is tired from interaction during the day. It turns day into day, night into night, so the baby is up. Amazing to see that baby in 3 or 4 days is up during the day, is looking around, is ready to learn. Yes, babies are ready to learn. They're wired to learn. But if there's nothing around them and their wakefulness time is at night, they can't learn because there's nobody there. Mom's exhausted, the lights are out. You're trying to hush the child. So when that baby is up and ready to learn during the day, he's sitting there and he's waiting for the sisters and the brothers to get home from school and to come and get in front of them and to talk to them. And he's like, whoa, this is, and he's in his little chair and he's looking. I've seen these babies come to the practice. They are amazing. It is super, super cool. And these are the babies that are speaking a little bit earlier. And it's not that they're necessarily, you know, they have these incredible brains, but you're wiring up the child to be able to learn. And so progressively, and I'll explain more and more about the bedtimes, but you can sort of see how by guiding the sleep patterns early on, you're guiding sleep patterns for later where it's not your sleep pattern. You're accommodating yourself to the family. The family is mom and dad are the nucleus of the family. You are my satellites. So you're always around me, looking at me, learning from me. And then and the bedtime and sleep time and then eating time is the same. So feeding is the same. It should be around you, but obviously I've explained that feeding and sleeping for toddlerhood in one. So easy to keep on going once you've figured out that eating and sleeping thing into toddlerhood. But see, toddlerhood is when a child starts to detach from you. He understands that you and he or she are not one, and he starts to sort of have his own or her own personality and starts to get a little bit more defiant and start to push back on you. And that's where it's very important for the child to understand you are his or her authority and start building your no walls. But you start doing that before. You know the babies and they're only 6 or 9 months old and they start sort of hitting on you. That's the time right there to take that little hand and say, no, we don't hit mama. And you make that face and not alarmed or anything, but you take the little hand and you go, you do not hit mama. No sir, no sir. And they'll learn. And when they do that shrieking, this is very important because we're letting our children shriek. Think about how it hurts your ears and you're somewhere else. Well, how about being inside there? What is that doing to that baby's brain, and we're letting them constantly shriek like that? And so I started thinking about this, and I said, you know, that's not a normal thing. I don't think that we were meant to allow our children to shriek without control. And it's okay for them to understand to cry so that you know if they're in danger or something like that, but the constant shrieking is not good for a child's brain. So what we did in the practice is I started talking to moms of children who were shrieking and telling them when they do that, you give them the same look and you say, no, we don't yell that way. Okay. You can speak, you can talk to me, but don't scream that way. That's not nice. I want you to be nice. And they started understanding that. And then they started sort of being, if they came into the practice, they were fearful of me with my white coat. And I said, it's okay for you to be afraid, but you don't scream. That's not nice. And they would start understanding that. Amazingly, the children that easily were trained by the parents, no, you don't scream like that, would start reacting. And we think, oh, there's no way to control this. But they were so easily, I mean, all the mom had to give them was a cue. And it had to persist for a day or two of the mom telling the child, no, we don't act like that. We don't shout like that. But at that point, it has to be at that moment when the child is doing it. You have to get the child's attention, have them look in your eyes, and you say, no, we don't do that. And you redirect the child. And a very important child. One of the problems that we have with our children today is that there's a myth that no is a bad word. No is a bad word if they're telling you no. But we translated that to mean that when we tell them no, that's bad. No is a wall from mom. You do not go there. It's the Gandalf, and you shall not pass. And so we need to have them understand my no is a no. My no is a wall. Those are the most important walls that you can give your child, because think about that. In the future, you're protecting your child from so many things by saying a simple no. And I always say that you don't want if you don't give the word no, if you're not the mom that gives the mom walls, you know, there's no limit in the future what that child will do and how big the walls have to be to stop that child from doing something that will hurt himself or hurt somebody else. And the ultimate walls are going to be prison walls. Well, we certainly don't want our children to get to the point where they need bigger and bigger walls to stop them from doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So I consider the word no in mom to be very effective. No should always be said with as much bosshood or momhood as possible. You have to say something very important. It is very important for us to rehearse in the mirror. Don't try it out if you don't feel comfortable with it. So you can't think that actors and actresses just got good at being a scientist, a doctor, or whatever it is they're playing. They had to see what they look like. They had to figure it out. And so you practice it. This is your most important part. Please practice it until you start feeling comfortable and saying no in a way that you're going to be respected. So, and that no thing and just coming across, I told you no, that's it. And walking away is very important. And so it is very important to prevent forming the unfettered child. And this is where you do it. We know that kid, and he or she might be ours, who's 3 and 4, and there are no walls. There is all fun and freedom, and they're so lovely to behold, but the rest of the world might not think so like we do. And so this is the time where you set up your pathway to getting to not having that unfettered child. So things that are important, like we talked about, is weaning from the breast of the bottle, leaving the pacifier. Toilet training. This is a very important one, because as you remember, we talked about toilet training and how important that was to the formation of the child. Once that child is toilet trained, they are on autopilot. And so then you can start giving them tasks and things to do, because you don't have to be tied to the diaper and changing a diaper and all the yicky things that are involved with that. And so this is that toilet training is very, very important, and it tells them in a time what they can understand. You are a big boy now. You're a big girl now. No more diapers for you. So to talk about toilet training a little bit, toilet training needs to you need to figure out what's your age of comfort. If you want for the child to understand what you're doing, you get a little bit closer to 2. If you want to try to wean out of those diapers, let's say that financially it would be a good idea because they're very expensive. I would say probably around 18 months. Some people are able to do it earlier, but I would say probably in today's in the time of today, 18 months to 2 years is a very good time. And you set a time and you start talking about it. You say, you're growing into a big boy, and you make sure every time you're talking to your child in a deliberate way, you're looking at your child's face, and you say, you're growing into a big boy. These are going to go away. We're going to throw them away, and we're going to have big boy underwear now. See, these have Ninja Turtles on them, these have Anna and Elsa, and aren't they cute? And you show them, you say, but that's for big boys and big girls. So for you once again, you go back to nuggets, and so you tell them, okay, so every 2 to 3 hours, you are going to take your child to the bathroom. Don't ask them. You say, it's time for bathroom break. When you ask them, do you need to go to the bathroom? They have no idea. No, because they're too interested doing what they're doing. They're too busy. They don't want to go and stop whatever they're doing. So you just say, it's time for a bathroom break. And they go. It's amazing. I don't want to go. It's okay. We'll just go anyway. And then you go off to your bathroom break. Make sure it's a routine. You go over there. There's the little toilet. Here's the little book. We sit there. You sit there. We go for our bathroom break. Okay, we're done. And then you go back. Okay, time for the bathroom break again. If you do this every 2 to 3 hours, oh my goodness, it doesn't take more than 2 weeks. Most of them come back. It's a great way to help with nighttime bedwetting as well. When you train that child's brain early, then you have less problems with nocturnal or bedtime bedwetting. But it's one of the simpler things to get through if you're persistent and you're consistent and you don't ask your child, do you need to go to the bathroom? And so the child will then build his or her own sort of schedule inside their head, and then they will start going, isn't it time for me to go to the bathroom? Instead of saying I have to go to the bathroom, they're like, yeah, something's missing. Oh, that's right, yes, it is time for you to go to the bathroom, and then you go together. Okay. So now the toddler has become a young child. That's around 3. So now they're on autopilot. They're speaking. They're eating. Hopefully at the table. I highly encourage at least 2, if not 3, of your meals to be eaten at the table together. I've considered the table a place of intimacy, and who would you want to, have that intimate time than your family? But it's very important for the child to see how you eat. See you speaking to dad, understanding their place in life. Dad and you should be speaking. The children should learn to listen to mom and dad so that they're understanding their place in life there as well. But that's what establishes your authority over the child. And so those meal times are very important, and you establish a schedule and a routine. And remember that all learning begins at home. You are the steward of your child's education, of your child's heart, your child's mind. And if you don't have the child understand that all good learning comes from you first, then when the teacher says something that he or she knows that you don't agree with, or that you for whatever reason don't agree with as well, the child understands if mom doesn't like that, that's no good. And so you develop school readiness. And how do you develop school readiness? Is by having that child pay attention and follow directions and obey. If a child doesn't obey, doesn't follow directions, and doesn't pay attention, they're not ready to learn. They're not ready to go to kindergarten. And so up until now, anything came up as questions as I kept on going?
No, now we're getting to the age that I'm.
Okay, very good. Any questions back there so far? No. Okay. So the school-age child, I call this cherish the struggles, because this is where the struggles really start. And so you have to cherish them, because the struggle will create a stronger child. If you constantly diminish the struggle or abolish the struggle, you will have a snowflake. So you have to cherish the struggle so that you have a stronger child. And it's so hard to cherish the struggle. So the struggles will create and exercise focusing abilities. Chores have to start early. You do not teach your child's chores and give your child chores to make your life easier, because it's easier for us to do them ourselves. And that is why so many moms do not have chores in their homes, because we said, what the heck? This is too difficult, and I'd rather just do it myself. And the children are sitting in front of the TV or sitting in front of the computer or doing their own thing or playing outside while we're doing the chores, because we think that the only reason for chores is to get some of the work off of our shoulders. And actually the reason for chores is to train our children. Folding clothes is a wonderful exercise in tedious, repetitive, deliberate tasks. And no child likes it. Neither is washing the dishes. Can be a little bit more interesting, but sweeping, vacuuming, cleaning the walls, cleaning the toilets. I always tell the parents, okay, at the age where they need a little humility is the best age to start the cleaning of the toilets, because if I can clean toilets, everybody can clean toilets. The only thing is you make that face and I just take it away from you because I don't want to see that face. So all of those things are ways to build your child in different ways. But if we remember, I like to give the example of I'm old, So I remember Karate Kid, and little Daniel-san was taught how to wax whatever, and it was wax on, wax off. And that built in him, first of all, humility, because he was just told what to do and it made no sense. And then authority, because he was told what to do and he had just do it. And the third thing was repetitive tasks that had to be done well. And so try to put those three things into your chores so that they're not just chores, they're ways that you're building your child. Don't explain yourself to your child. It is actually better to tell your child because I said so, because otherwise it becomes a give and take back and forth, and the child doesn't really want to know anyway. They just like to look like they want to know so that they distract you, and at the end they're not doing the chore. So because I said so or because mom wants you to is good enough, because they're going to get the same thing from the boss. If you tell why